I mean, I was being positive earlier. It started
How much
slowly and
where
slowly
did it go
fade
up?
away.
All right, like how much did it go away? Right.
And hyper. And hyper and,
Yeah.
and hyper and morph if they're able to change it. But the thing why I'm being so tough on hyper too is because they can actually reach Enigma Galaxy. Enigma Galaxy has not had a great day.
Good point. Well, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and just cool off a little bit after that crazy performance, and we're gonna be right back. And we're back. Here we go, guys. Day number 3 has been nothing but action-packed circle shenanigans. So, you know, I heard like what you said a little bit earlier, Seven, right? You know, we think that Hyper possibly has a chance, Morph has a chance, but now you're saying that even Nigma maybe have to put in some work here. What do you think about that?
I feel like they do. We haven't really seen given that it's 2 matches, we really haven't seen good performance out of them. I feel like they've been focusing too much on those bridge camps.
Yeah.
When we're used to seeing this team actually focus more towards the middle of the circle. You even heard the caster said it at 1.2. If Enigma Galaxy wouldn't have focused on that bridge camp and they would have actually focused on their crazy rotations with that secret formula that they have, I feel like it would have been a completely different story. And I feel like I wouldn't even be talking about this for Enigma Galaxy. So Enigma Galaxy, give me some crazy rotation, kid. Come on.
I think there's somebody evil at PUBG Mobile that heard that was like, time to change the formula with these circles. Goodness gracious. Let's go ahead and take it on over to John and Zute.
Hey man, if it's not working out, you got to change some stuff up. So maybe Enigma Galaxy are going to have to look to adjust a thing or two at the middle part of today, although it's going to be pretty tricky because a lot of other teams are trying to take those central positions as well.
I think the biggest change is not the formula, but the way the teams are playing, right? We had a quick discussion about it. I feel like coming into the 3rd day, by default, the first 2 days, most teams are thinking, you know, we'll work our way into the circle, fight our way in. If we get a nice circle shift, we'll full send it. But by 3rd day, if that's not working, teams will change their strat to, okay, what is working for the other top teams? Enigma Galaxy, hey, we could do that. Let's just try full sending ourselves, which creates less space for Enigma Galaxy to play in as well. So it is, you know, the day where a lot of things start changing up. Teams will alter strategies here. And one team that hasn't had too much success is Enigma Galaxy, but we're only, you know, a couple games in. That big game could still come out for Enigma Galaxy.
We're waiting for it. We're waiting to see it today. They do kind of just need to keep pace at this point. They have got a 10-point lead over Morph, who have similarly not been performing in today's matches. They were a little bit lackluster yesterday as well. They did manage to keep themselves up towards the top of those tables, but in general, it just wasn't what we want from them. And I think Morph definitely have the most to prove out of all of these teams now in the top 4 spots. With NHyper close by, they might even drop down to 5th.
That is a big possibility. I'm looking at the leaderboards. I still think it's going to be a really tough task for any team to break past into the top 3 simply because of the point gap and because of all the teams' performances that aren't in the top 3. Obviously, the most consistent are in the top 3, but we've seen exactly how they do it, and it's a formula that they can replicate throughout the other games. As for everyone else, it's seeming like, you know, sometimes they get a big game and then they're nowhere to be seen. And if you keep getting those big games and then nowhere to be seen, you're not going to be able to catch up and pass up the consistent teams, which is the current top 3.
Primorsk up to Severny on the plane path. Going to be good news for SDE to get that loot on nice and quickly. Although there's going to be quite a few teams around them, so maybe not the best of news. We'll have to wait and see how they progress forwards, where this circle's going to take us. Are we going to go back to the military base? We'll have to wait and see as teams start to drop out here. On the last match, I mean, I do just want to quickly talk again about Kanina Power, because this is, it is a big fall from grace, right? Like this is a team that, by all rights, have performed well. Sure, they qualified towards the bottom of the European Championships, but they have had their moments, and they have really, I mean, they've got a really solid roster. DGR coming through on this tournament hasn't quite had the sort of impact that maybe they wanted onto the team, and it just has not come through, and it feels like they had the wind taken out of their sails somewhat. The momentum, the morale just isn't there. You know, they're not even keeping up with the teams towards the bottom. They're at 27 points right now. Hale is at 51, sat a place above them, and it needs to be better. Hopefully they can learn the lessons from this group and take them back to the region to maybe develop for next season, because I just don't see them getting through even into the survival stage.
Yeah, points-wise, it's very easily possible, because just the bottom of the group, it's easier to pass up teams, because the other teams near you aren't doing too hot either. So statistically easy to do, or not easy, but very possible. But I think you're absolutely right. I feel like Kanina Power, I'll go out on a limb and say, even before the first match started, their mental was probably not in the best spot. Because like you mentioned, Kanina Power, fall from grace, they have what it takes, but to do this poorly, something was off from the get-go, I think.
No, it's very difficult, obviously, to pinpoint exactly wasn't working for them, but either way, they are going to feel it on those points totals, and I'm willing to count them out at this stage of even making it to the survivals. However, there's still plenty of teams in the running. I would say everybody who isn't Kanina Power actually is definitely in with a shot of getting towards those survival stages. As we start to see that lead for the top 3 be isolated to, I would say, 5 teams.
We do have a very northeastern circle here. Should pull away from Stalber. It's not too far up north. I will say this week has been great as far as circles go. A lot of just different challenging ones. We haven't seen like too many same boring circles repeated. We've had a military base, a Stalber one. We've had one in the riverside, you know, just next to the crates. So all of these teams really being challenged with these unorthodox zones. And then we have sprinkled in, you know, a lot of good standard zones for teams to play in as well. So with the way the points are shaping out, I think the teams definitely, you know, near the top have their homework done. They know how to navigate even the trickiest of circle. I mean, that last one, military base, was won by STE. And it wasn't won in the standard fashion of rotating early and then getting the zones. They were, you know, moving it around and chasing kills down and chasing more and more points. And then finally, just with a dominant position, Team Synergy took the win on that one.
Absolutely. It's been great to watch, been great to see. A lot of interesting circles, and I'm happy that it's going to continue. The position to the north of Snell, but probably not going to be finished up towards again. It's very unlikely there. North George for Kanina Power. They'll rotate most likely along the top of that central river and look for a crossing at some point there. From the eastern side, it's fairly sparse. No one in Lipovka. Obviously, the plane path started Primorsk to Severny, so that western edge going to be a lot more dense, densely packed with teams.
I do see NB Esports close to central position, but that is just their loot position. Taking a look at the timer, we are quite a bit, a couple minutes into this match. No team's really making a fast rotation center just yet. I see intense game on the west side starting to take some strong spots. And there's a lot of strong positions in this first circle, but this is one of those circles where it's like a little bit too dynamic with breaks in the map, where if it goes north of Yasnaya, it's a totally different battlefield. If it goes west, if it keeps the river in play, that's a totally different battlefield. That teams are looking to wait a little bit for that second zone to really prioritize what power position they want.
FaZe rolling up. They spotted a player from Intense Game. Adrian doesn't really have the backup just yet, but I think that's going to change in just a moment. You can see the rest of the team up on that hillside, and now Mella's in trouble for FaZe. They're going to have to answer and suppress that ridge line, try and keep them away from supporting Adrian. They are actually going to reposition a little bit with the vehicle. Try and drive away, but the team is here, and they have got Adrian's back now. However, FaZe controlling the bridge. This is quite an early setup here, but both of these two teams have got plenty of loot.
Yeah, and I do believe Kanina Power is within earshot of these gunshots, and Kanina Power is one team that desperately needs to third-party something right now for a couple of points, so this could get very messy. Onzen already has swam across the river. I don't think Intense Game is aware of this at all. As you can see, they've shifted towards the west side of the map, shifting into Kanina Power potentially, which is why that player is so low. Yeah, Kanina Power is here to third party.
Becker opening on the open ground. No, can't step out too wide. This play. Players in the wings, and Onzen will start to strike now. Adrian forced to try and crawl away from it. Mormon now on the northern shores as well, and it might be a little bit of a crunch coming through from Intense Game on this northern side. Kanina Power pushing in from that west edge, and now FaZe having surrounded them on the east, crossing undetected and forcing them to make mistakes here. Diego wants to try and take these trades, but you're covered off from two angles now. You're just going to have to find what you can, and you're out of ammo as well. It's just not going to go your way. Diego falls next.
Yeah, and now they're getting pushed by Kanina Power, completely different squad from FaZe. This is probably the worst way to start the game. Well, I mean, there is no worse way to start the game, but mentally, this is, you're going on a rotation, right? One player gets caught, you decide to come back and help, and then you get crunched by two different squads. That's not good for the mental right there. An Intense Game, this would have been a big one for them to kind of, keep pace up and maybe get some more points to have that conversation where you could be in the top 3, but getting a big donut here in that fashion must be very demoralizing.
It's not going to be the best of news. In 6th place, though, they are one of the safer teams in terms of those survival stage spots, but still very much at risk. Do not want to be putting those sorts of numbers up. You're right. NB shots over towards NASA, but it is just jousting at the moment. No one really looking to take a head off at this stage. Just damage the armor, absorb some of the medical supplies.
You see SDE here rotating in from the far southwest. And SDE definitely saw that fighting. They're keeping in mind where those teams probably are, who was in the elimination feed. And I was going to guess they're going to go up north into the blue to maybe get more fights in, but they're staying on the south side. So with that knowledge in mind, they aren't going to look to do some third partying in the north. They're going to play their own game on the south. Next zone shift about to come out. And oh boy, Yasnaya finish potential.
Oh, that is, could be dastardly. Udo Alliance pretty happy about it though. They dropped there, they stayed there. They won't have to move too far at all. You can see immediately all of the vehicles being taken on board. Those hillsides to the south of Stalba going to be densely populated as well. You can see next Ruya trying to make their way through them. Morph a little bit higher on up. Enigma Galaxy, this is all the way on the south side now, playing around on these mountain splits on the God compound there, the overlook. STE on the southwest side. This is near Rozhok. They're trying to leave towards Hale.
Yeah, this is a very isolated fight. The only team close by is Ducks. They're a bit far away. This 4v4 is going to play out, and we know STE love their fights. No openings just yet. I did catch Hyper losing a couple players on their rotation. And Hale does have 4. Their 4th player on the north side of the river. That could be the ace up the sleeve they need, that off angle that STE may not be aware of. They're getting crunched in hard here. These 3 players just need to survive. Maybe their 4th player could get an angle.
Try and sneak that one a little bit out wider. Next Ruya wanting to try and stick that res, try and stay alive as much as possible, but the mad dash for the north side of Yasnaya is going to result in Hyper getting 2 of their players in, GK first and FS, both finding a little bit of sanctuary, but not much. SDE with 33% down and Hero low, they back off. Xing taken very, very low as well. Hale doing well so far in this fight. They are forcing STE's hand here. 33% trying to crawl away, but I don't think they're going to let this one go. Just about to find the peak, but the heals have come through, and the speed of which they're taking this fight has slowed down a little bit. Fortunately, they find the flush from the off angle, and Hale are now 3v4.
Yeah, the off angle from the north side, I'm pretty confident to say, is what got the opening onto the player of STE. And a nade to follow. STE getting cut down here. A strong fighting team, but all it takes is that one knock for the entire formation to break, and Hale are taking great advantage of it.
Spray from Sunan through, but not going to find anything. They have repositioned away from it, saying somehow safe from the fire there. Has just about found a corner that won't be lit up. As Tiger holding down these windows, they know where this player is. They should know where Sunan is. I don't think 628 are going to be able to replicate their performance from the last match as we hop on over to Kanina Power. This is on the north side, looking for that flank. Kanina Power wanting to try and keep this fight going on the northwestern side, but they've taken a knock against FaZe.
Yeah, next circle is shifting too, so a lot of engagements here. Teams are caught on each other. STE, Sunan, last one up, is forced to rotate away, rotating into Inko, and Yasnaya still in zone, but a lot of the open fields to the east of Yasnaya will be the central focus point.
A long slope that sort of goes away. Underneath Morph, it's basically sort of long, slopey terrain going all the way around for this next stage. I think NB probably have the best side of it in terms of the ridge cover that they have. FaZe still scrapping it back and forth with Kanina Power, and it's going well for FaZe right now. Kanina Power not really able to stand up in the face of it here, as FaZe are keeping the pressure up. Agori trying to get the reses onto the backline. Becca down. I want to try and pick it back up. Ventura's back in action as well in the meantime, and only 2 players of Kanina Power to deal with.
Yeah, this should be another 2 points for FaZe here, putting them up to 6 elim points this very early on. If you look at the leaderboards, FaZe is in 6th place. That's a good spot to be in. Get a couple more points, put your names in the conversation for a potential top 3. Good nade. Only 1 player left. Should be a clean finish. Shouldn't lose anybody. Onzum pushing in. Does get knocked. Should be a quick trade though. And there it is.
Able to shut out Kanina Power yet again, who are only able to find 2 points on this match. Unfortunate news once more for the European representatives. But good news for FaZe, keeping all 4 of their players alive. And like you say, 6 eliminations this early on is good. The question is, can they sustain? Have they used too many nades? Have they used too much utility and expended that armor supply too far? We'll have to wait and see how much further they can go, because they are cut out a little bit, and Hale swinging in behind them.
Nongshim Red Force on the south side, getting shot up just a little bit by Inko, trying to push them away. So Nongshim's playing this slow from the south. Nigma Galaxy is also playing this slow from the southeast side. Those are 2 big names we've got to keep track of. We do know SCE down to 1. Most likely won't be able to do much this match. And Morph, the other big name that we haven't seen too much on, they're scrapping it out on the north side against Nasser, right just south of Stalber Hill.
Going to be trying to defend that 4th position, although 4th is kind of probably one of the worst positions to find yourself in. It can be so demoralizing to be just on the edge of getting that direct qualification spot to the grand finals, but we'll have to wait just a little bit longer. They will be denied. Hale trying to move in behind NB, and right now all 4 of their players are alive, but 2 of them are knocked. And look at how difficult this is going to be. A single nade into this bathroom sees the majority of Hale completely dispatched of. Mondo around the edge with the DPS, steps out, spots the player on the inside. This should be it through the window, but he's not connecting with the DPS. Finally cuts the cross, and that's 3 points added to the tally of NB. A really good pickup as Hale are down to 1.
Hale getting picked apart there. Tough position to defend, however, when there's a team on the northern high ground, and that team on northern high ground gets the zone dead center.
Ooh.
Great zone shift for Enigma Galaxy as well. This could be the game. You know, they've had a couple bad games, which is, we could say, uncharacteristic because they've been very consistent, but this might be the big one for Enigma Galaxy to boost their way back up the top of the leaderboards. Still very early into the match, though. They have a lot of work out to do in front of them.
A lot of work indeed. It's not going to be easy. Enigma Galaxy, like you say, looking to snake all the way up on that eastern edge. Sneak their way through with NB successfully taking a fight. They are only left at 2 players though, as FaZe rotate around on the north side as well. Looking to get a down shot on towards Morph, and maybe third party there. Standoff with Nasser, sorry. Looking for any sort of ground that they can cover, because Morph are going to look to control this north side as well, and I think Morph have the inside track. It'd be very difficult for FaZe to take this from them, but with the high ground, maybe there's something they can do.
Yeah, they're Might be a huge exploit here for FaZe. I mean, FaZe are fired up this match. Already up to 6 eliminations. They're feeling confident here. Don't know if FaZe spotted them. Oh, shots ringing out. You can see it on the minimap. They did spot the location of Morph. So Morph's position is known. Mormon maybe trying to bait out shots to gauge just how strong the opposition is here before they really commit to anything. And scouting around at the same time. This may be a position that they don't even need. Looks like they got the edge of zone here. And with FaZe, majority of them not being on the high ground, I don't think they're going to look for an angle in to contest the spot that Morph has. Still very early into the game. We still have 14 teams up, but Morph will instead take that high ground away from FaZe. FaZe slipping up just a little bit, but oh, another team. Duckskin coming in from the blue. Far up in the north side.
They've swept all the way around from this western edge and are looking to completely encircle this. They might have just taken Morph's position from them. This is really, really unfortunate timing, but brilliant for Ducksan. They've taken that compound away from Morph, forced them into FaZe, and to be fair to Morph, they're very much pushing FaZe off that position as well, but they have had their position taken away from them. They'll have to move further south. The good news is that that compound not really going to be a priority to be able to hold onto for this next circle.
Yeah. Morph needs to win this fight now, too. 4 elimination points. 4th in the leaderboard. This would be a great fight for them to win. Duckson with the nades. And Morph in a way worse position. They're all kind of funneled into that bowl, making it easy for nades to come in. Cleon trying to separate off. Will catch the brunt of the force. Now it's a 4v3. Morph not able to do anything here. And you can see the positioning going towards the high ground. This could be over for Morph.
Morph have eaten quite a few nades there, quite a lot of damage, but Ducksan still have a little bit more to do. The res from Morph still potential to enact there. Boo-Boo-Hoo looking to reposition on the south side here, get that low ground under control, the inside track to the next phases of this circle, splitting the difference on the players with the nade, but there's a weapon trained their direction instead, and Morph lose yet another knock. Is this a third party from the backlines? I think there might be an angle from Inko across the way, potentially taking shots out towards the backlines of Ducksan.
Duckson playing this way too passively. We saw just moments earlier, they had every advantage possible, but they were too worried either with the blue zone or a lack of confidence, and now they're getting third party, more free adjusted, and it looks like Duckson will be the ones losing this fight. Enigma Galaxy, huge fight here on the south side, down to the scraps. It's a 2v2, no, 2v1. Last one up is Lord. Wings, oh, and this is Nongshim Red Force as well. Nongshim Red Force will go for the revive. It will be a 2v1 here. Lord not able to do the same. He goes for it now, but the timing is better for Nongshim. Who's going to win out this fight? Nongshim will only be able to reset to 2, though, however.
Wayne's going to push past the down player and immediately responded to. Lord didn't manage to pop a res here, but he gets the knock and the flush. Now Sporter with a nade, looking to cook through the window. I think they heard the pin pull. He steps out, he baits the nade to bounce off the window and gets back to cover. A second now invested as Lord swings through, spots the window, but gets back into cover, a sliver of HP, and it is Enigma Galaxy holding on by a thread of the
nade
outfit.
That should be good.
Window. We'll look for it, and there it is. It's going to land straight on to Ralph. Finding the shot, finding the nade, and Sporter closes it down, but at the cost of plenty of their players.
Oh, man. If Lord was able to clutch up that fight, they'd be in a great spot in the zone. For the next one, they would be getting that, like, almost full reset. But a pivotal fight lost. Only 2 elimination points, and they went out early still. Not many placement points either. Nongshim Red Force will continue on. Morph still alive. Down to just 1 player here. Looking at this, reset up to 3 potentially, but Inko shouldn't allow this to happen. Inko have all the lines of sight. No third-party worries for Inko. This should be easy picking for some.
2 high nades. The first gets a flush. Is the other one going to find the players behind this rock? Because they did manage to get to cover. Picked up on the down player, so now it is just Yoru, but NEEDEDPUBG has got that angle from outside in the zone though, so it will have to be repositioned fairly soon, but Squash going to roll quickly that he's in this smoke, and it's going to be very difficult to survive here. Tries to crunch it for the player there, but he steps out, goes with the DBS around the edge of the smoke, but Squash handles it, and none of the players from Inko go down.
Inko keeping their squad up as 4, now in firm control of the entire northern side. Meanwhile, so many fights going out. We're down to 7 teams, only 20 players alive. So not many strong teams left here. A lot of teams down to 3, down to 2. 7th Element, I see they're down to 1. NB Esports earlier at this compound had 4 up with a really strong position. They're actually only, and FaZe is right over the top of them. So this could be a big game for Inco. I think they are the only 4. No, they lost a player. Looking at the feed right there, they're down to 3.
That is really unfortunate. So only NASA now with that full squad. Udo Alliance trying to break out these open fields near Yasnaya. This is the open sloping terrain that we were talking about earlier on. There are some defilades over on the eastern side that Inco are sort of playing around, but that plateau that sits in front of them, it's just so hard to navigate. The east edge is going to be a lot safer for a lot of these teams. So I'm wondering what NASA can do now.
Yeah, this is Nasser's game to really convert into some points, being the only 4-man team, and they get the high ground. They have the zone control on the edge side, but they have very favorable terrain working ahead of them. They just need to make sure not to make any mistakes to lose a player early on here. They need to clean up these fights, not lose a single player, and they're starting it with one position at a time. One of the FaZe members taken out, creating more control for the side of Nasser.
A really important position to be able to take control of. A little bit of high ground, some hard cover from that shack. There is a FaZe player close by, and they might want to deal with that fairly soon, but are Inco going to have sightlines over towards it? Are they just going to rotate on through? Because Inco are going to have to make their move. NEEDEDPUBG is close by, and he's going to try and get that angle away from them, but he's spotted.
Ooh.
J7 takes down NEEDEDPUBG.
Nice awareness to catch that out. There is that vehicle sticking out like a sore thumb, however. So J7 will pick that one up. Surely Inco can't do anything now with only 2 against the 4 players of Nasser. Nasser doing a 1-2-1 split. One player in the far back. Just watch everywhere else on the battlefield because they know this is a prime opportune time
For Nasser. And Nate actually moves the vehicle there as well, but Star pushes forwards, gets the reload. Now turns his attention over towards the rock and pushes forwards, but he's the last player for Inco.
Yeah, Squash does need to play this a little more aggressively because he is a solo. Nasser will get that revive as there's no real pressure. I mean, there's some third-party shots from distance, but that is at such a steep angle that Nasser could really just disregard that. Nasser looking to close it out onto Squash. Now Squash did push up, but not enough for him, and they will take that player down. Up to 8 eliminations for this team on the high ground with 4 players up.
Mela is still on that rock for FaZe, playing just up the hill from where Spec is right now. You can see him there. He's waiting for players to try and crash onto this location. I don't think there's a vehicle nearby. I'm not entirely sure, but Mela might be a little bit camouflaged here. If he bides his time, could rank up a little bit for FaZe, who have already got 6 elimination points here. And they're on the chase for N-Hyper. Udo Alliance trying to leave from the Asnaya fields, and NASA will shut the door.
Nasser doing a really great job here. Really took their time with this match towards the late game and then started to make their moves, securing all the strong positions. The circles were not nice to any of the teams either, with shifts constantly to the northeast. Udo Alliance will get that reset to 3, but working from the low ground with almost no way in. I don't even know if them having a 4-man team will be much help.
Look at the linear fashion of these teams right now. This is what happens when you have these open slopes to play around. Udo Alliance going to try and swing wide. Nongshim Red Force have been afforded some of the few bits of terrain cover on the hard eastern side here, and the circle shifts down south. So Udo Alliance get a little bit favored here, but they are completely in the sightlines of basically everybody else.
Yeah. And with this little hillside or ridge side in the zone, XCY will be hard to evict from this position, taking a lot of shots, putting out a lot of pressure. Nongshim Red Force, they're just happy all the other top dogs are out, and they're getting placement points. They're picking up a couple elim points. They're already in first place, so this is a great game for them.
How far can they stretch it, though? Because 5th place still doesn't get you super large amounts of points, right? And Morph already got 7 eliminations on this game. But I think the big news here is that this is a big shift in the middle of these tables, right? 4 teams are currently in these survival spots.
Nasser, how many more points can they get? Up to 9 elimination points. Another big win. I mean, this puts them into the conversation. But so many teams, you know, they get this one big win and they need so much more right afterwards to really break into that top 3. And that's the name of the game today for everyone in the middle of the pack.
Getting into the conversation is about as good as you can hope for, you're right. Can they convert here? All 4 of their players still alive. Nongshim Red Force, I think that ridge might just be pushed out. in this phase, but they are very, very close to the edge. And either way, it's very nadeable on their position. You can see just how close to it they are. Where do they go from here? I mean, you move forwards potentially towards that loot crate that sits just at the front of their screen, but that's going to have to be allowed by NASA, who actually might do so. They've repositioned further west, sorry.
Nasser does have a tough decision to make here. Because if they crash in at an odd angle, and that's a great angle to crash in on, they crash in from the side where nobody can really third party from the sloping hillsides, but one of their first players does get knocked. Star is down. They got the player at the off angle at the shack, so good trade. NB down to 1. We see a lot of shots on the minimap. Teams may be gearing up for a third party here. How can Nasser clear this one out without any more casualties? It's getting dicey.
Xenox out inside the bathroom. Mondo knows exactly where he is, turns the corner, perfectly timed, and that is disastrous for NASA. It's going to allow Nongshim Red Force to potentially have an impact here, but they're going to have to shift away again. Look at this zone. It is cruel, it is brutal, but they force U2 Alliance back, and now NASA are more preoccupied with NB's position. They're Kyle on the north side.
Nasser down to 2 now. That firm, strong foothold they had with 4 players up against a lot of scrap teams, it just went right out the window. Now, this could be anyone's game depending on the next zone shift. Sporta goes down to a nade. He will not be able to get revived here unless XEY pulls out a miracle. Yeah, it gets confirmed as well. U2 Alliance with 2, now in a good position, and numbers-wise, no one has more than 2 players.
It is really, really scrappy on this mountainside, south of Stauber, north of Yasnaya. Desolate plain for everybody, and they're trying to move forwards. XCY actually might get to some terrain cover there if he can hit the deck behind the buggy. Maybe looking to just sweep through and take control of this high ground himself, but he's going to have his work cut out for him. M249 in hand, plenty of rounds to handle a duo. XZY hits the deck, wants to go for some healing, but J7 has other ideas. A nade up and high. Will it be able to find the mark? Will it be able to be on the money there? It's going to be looking pretty solid, but not quite connecting, not just in time. The next zone's still closing.
Everyone down to solo besides Nasser now. Number advantage back in their favor. However, with this zone, we are going down to nothing, and they have to come downhill, which means everyone on the lower ground is going to be looking uphill at them. This is going to be tough. They have a vehicle to use. They might be able to make a play with that. But for now, everyone just still scooching into the zone. Well, everyone meaning just the one singular Nongshim Red Force player. I think he just managed to make it in. No one spotting him out on the low ground. I'm sure with Olio with the M4 gets some nice shots in. Nade being cooked. That is nade distance. And Olio should know this. Should have seen that nade come in. Will dodge it just in time. Takes a couple of damage. First aid and another nade for Mondo.
3 first aids in the back pocket for Mondo. 1 now for Olio. Another nade on target would give a massive advantage to Mondo. With the zone pushing in, Olio has to move. He knows exactly where he's fighting off against. He's going to cover off this rock. Has the M4 and the Bison in the back pocket to try and unload here. But no utility. It is just going to have to be aim skill. He's moved out wide and dodged the majority of the nades. Mondo takes a huge hit of damage there. Has to hit the deck, but he can't take the time to go for the heal and will fall down out in the open. The Bison switch to an Olio makes it work. Pulls it back, and it's U2 Alliance to extract themselves from Yasnaya and make it happen. A chicken dinner.
What a game ending. We were on our feet the whole time. Anybody could have taken it. I mean, we thought it was going to be Nasser with 4 up, but they made a push down, which lost 2 of their members, and then it was anyone's game. U2 Alliance ultimately, and the end come out on top. That 1v1 so close. The util, the first aids all came into play.
Really, really solid to be able to just stay alive. I mean, it didn't look particularly spectacular, I have to say, from U2 Alliance. They made some good crossings, sure, but they just allowed the lobby to wane around them and struck while the iron was hot. And what a clutch from Olio. Certainly silencing his opponents there. Mondo taking that hit of damage was so important for their progression to get this chicken dinner.
Yeah, a lot of teams did not manage to get the points needed, though, to put their name into the conversation. I mean, it's great that some of these teams are securing the points, because come tomorrow, the next worry for them is just making it to survival stage. So it's a big win for U2 Alliance. Nonetheless, NB Esports also having a really great placement finish. Nongshim Red Force, I mean, they are just kind of padding their points, which they need to, because STE was right.
Gap going because Morph as well went down fairly early. Udo Alliance, however, secure their first chicken dinner of Group Red. The Malaysian team are able to.
All right, y'all. Udo Alliance get a chicken dinner right here. Hey, they're looking a little bit stronger going into the survival stage after this. No, I'm just kidding. Who knows? Who knows, right? Hopefully they can continue this on, right? A little sign of life. Like to see some hype from the players here, Seven.
See, I usually don't mind hype, but the whole shushing, look at the camera, shushing, that boy's feeling himself. Brother, you're not even near the top 3. Calm down.
Hey, winning a 1v1 is always going to be a good moment, especially on the biggest stage. I guess the second biggest stage in the world right now. With the biggest stage is making it to the grand finals. Despite this win, Dukes, they're not going to make it to the top 3, okay? Let's be honest right now. We're too deep into the tournament. The teams at the top have way too many points that even though this is such a good turnaround for Udo Alliance, a team that we really weren't talking about at all day 1, we talked about them a little bit day 2, them along with a couple in that middle section should just not be in the bottom 5. And Alliance have cleared that goal, I think.
Yeah, you saw, a couple of teams that still had a contention, right? Honestly, it was just Morph and Hyper, right? Morph put up 7 eliminations at a nice little, placement point there. So they did something, and Hyper, unfortunately, going out super early here, Cam.
Yeah, I just can't follow up. And I want to continue to give the acknowledgement that Sanok in game. So there were a couple of teams that usually play center that we didn't even see them try and go to center this time around. But that's the name of the game, right? Like, you can't just continue to give teams an out. You have to perform at least sometimes, and they're just not being able to follow up. And looking at these overall rankings, I mean, like, they're close to Morph, right? And Hyper? Not really, actually. I thought there was a follow-up with a win, like, on the next Erangel, if not today, if they want to be in that conversation for the top 3.
Okay, all right, I like to hear that. One team that I think that you had your eyebrow raised up a little bit, Seven, right? I think it's Enigma Galaxy, right? They're what is that, 4 points away from Morph here? So how confident are you feeling about going into them for the rest of the day?
I'm not sure, to be honest. They're showcasing a completely different playing style. I mean, I mentioned earlier about the bridge camps, right?
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing enough commitment out of them whenever they decide to move out of those camps. I mean, especially this last match, I saw Freak being the only player in that compound for such a long time, and I was wondering, okay, at one point is he gonna rotate? His team was kind of far away from him. They were able to get a knock whenever Nongshim Red Force was pushing onto them. They had the advantage, but all the other players were just so far away, and it's completely different from what we're used to seeing out of Enigma Galaxy, because we're used to seeing the team closer together. We're used to seeing the team rotating together. Yeah, I get that the circles might not be favorable for being able to push to the center, but I want to see them being able to commit a little bit more towards one position.
Yeah, that's the bigger question, though. Center play was not really viable. That sort of threading the needle into a strong central compound was not an option here north of Yasnaya. But they weren't able to really win even one team fight trying to hold out on the edge, which is something that they were able to do earlier. So again, I'm not using this as like, oh, Nigma are washed, like, oh, they're out, they're gonna flip out of the top 3. But it does show that there is at least a small gap in their play. And when you're saying Nongshim Red Force constantly getting points, they're saying that they're not playing that well, and yet they're still always in like the mix for getting points every single time. Like, there is a clear tier difference sort of developing even with those top teams.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, we may see a little bit of a notch in their play, but I'll tell you what, if there's any place for them to kind of fix that notch, it's going to be here, right? So you want to be able to get that kind of figured out. It's tough because you are right. I mean, they did not have that viable option to really go central. Everybody was playing edge. I would feel a lot more comfortable, though, if we saw them at least putting up, 5 eliminations or just something on the board rather than that 2 here, 7.
That's the thing. They're not allowing some of their players to get settled and start scouting out for those options. That's usually what we see at Enigma Galaxy, at least when we saw those big performances, whether it was Coops, whether it was Lord or Freak, whoever it was, they weren't just all set looking at different angles. And we kind of saw Laura alluding to the end of the day, right? They were saying when they hold the compound, everybody's able to look at a certain area and they trust each other that they're going to be able to hold it down. We didn't see any of that here. Now, I feel like we should flip the table a little bit more, right? Because we're talking about this during that match. We got to start focusing a little bit more on those teams towards the bottom. And Anko, even though they are currently 9 points away from 11th place, who is this Inko? I'm genuinely shocked at the performance that we're seeing out of Inko. NEEDEDPUBG, currently not. Every single time that we see him being able to make a push, usually from where we've been able to cover him, he's like, all right, he's going to clutch this up.
Level stage. We're going to have to put even some more work in. So hopefully we can see some signs of life for these guys as we take ahead and throw it on over to the caster.
In the middle of these tables, plenty of teams starting to start down towards that 11th place survival and topped up on those points where they can
kind of slipping into each other almost. Enigma Galaxy, we were saying a lot, you know, over and over yesterday and the day before, like, surely they can't keep getting away with this. And now, well, they're not. They're needing to win some crucial fights, and they're losing it at the most pivotal points. And we heard, you know, earlier at the start of the day, they were talking about Koops in the interview, how Koops was a big change for them. He was a player that was really needed, you know, to get the openings. That's what I heard in particular. Koops is great at getting the openings, and I'm really familiar with Koops. Him and NA, he was dominating everything. He is a huge powerhouse. So not gonna, you know, I don't want to say it's on Koops, but maybe Enigma Galaxy might be relying on Koops a little bit too much in these engagements, and when he doesn't get those great openings for them, we start to see some cracks in the machine, so to say.
They have just been looking a little bit lackluster in those fights for today's matches. Have the gaps that they exploited being closed? Will they be presented to them again? We'll have to wait and see as we head into the final Erangel of the day.
We are back onto Erangel, and so far every single match of Erangel has been a circle that is just in a completely different spot. So really putting the test to all of these teams, and now we get to vary things up quite a bit once again.
Judo Alliance probably going to try and find a backup spot here with Yasnaya Poliana so far away. I hope that Canadian Power go back to their military base position, military area. Could see a hot drop in Novo, but no, it's just going to be Inko heading out that way. Nothing too super difficult on the south side, but look out for hot drops right now on the south coast because those vehicles will be hotly contested.
Oh yeah, and NHyper is a team that lands around the farm to do a split, and NHyper is going to want to secure their own vehicles there as well. And here, maybe even some vehicle run. Our southeastern circle here, military base somewhat in.
But just about to make landfall, certainly. Difficult stuff to be found, and everyone's disengaging. Right now, maybe still over on this west edge, you could still see a couple more scraps, but right now, no one is left super high and dry.
Yeah. It looks like everyone should be able to get to where they want safely. Enigma Galaxy Freak secured a vehicle, and he's hovering around another team right now, but I think he's just going to disengage that and go back for...
Expecting a lot more contestation around the vehicles on the south coast. I mean, I even spoke about it before, but no, they seem to have figured it out. I guess with the... So potentially that conflict has been delayed a little bit until this next phase.
And we've gotten these kind of southern plane paths more than once, I imagine. So teams kind of figured out from previous matches, like, okay, so your split will stretch into here for a vehicle and so on. No one really likes, you know, to go for the 50-50 who's going to get into the vehicle first. So, as we mentioned, so that giant hilltop will come into play. Shelter is going to be a huge, you know, focal point because we all know the shelter position so strong, and it can house up to, you know, 2 to 3 teams potentially. And looking at the mini map, no team should really be able to, you know, just get the best spot in this first zone because it's pretty much divided between the west and east of that road. East is that giant hilltop, and you can stretch into Milton Power potential, and to the west of that you just got a lot of strong compounds that are spread out with open space terrain. So really difficult to just, you know, pick a spot right now and potentially, you know, hip hop into the rest of the game.
Teams started to migrate, but are still arm's distance for everyone. Duxan stretching out across that south coast from Ferry Pier, further out to the east to the edge of the zone. Nobody moving super fast. So I think this is probably the quietest start to an Erangel that we've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely so. Looks like 7th Element have already picked their spot, though, and they're grouped up as 4. I can't, or not 7th Element. Oh, that team, their names are being covered right now. That might be next Ruya, actually. The bright
team
blue.
in blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next Ruya.
All 4 in one spot. I don't think they... Where did they loot? Oh, I think they looted Milta, and then immediately just went to that position and hunkered in. So there, it's a great spot. You can still have options, you know, if you do end up surrounded, if the circle shifts off you. But I don't think it's going to be the best of positions to just hunker in all 4 players at.
They might just try and survive it on out, try and tough it, but dangerous. A dangerous decision being made. Next for you is a team that has, I believe, so far disappointed. Yet again, this stage not going to go well for them. I mean, they're in 13th place right now. This is the European champions, remember. These guys came first over in the European Championship with the combined Turkey and European region. And this is not the performance that you'd expect from that sort of a team. It's not even like they're trying to make plays. It just seems like they're denied every time they take a fight. It just doesn't go their way.
Not having much screen time at all. It really kind of just shows that team has been just fizzling about. Kanina Power, another team that really hasn't... Well, I mean, Kanina Power gets screen time, but it's usually in the most disastrous of ways. Just getting picked off here now by Inko. And man, it is tough. Kanina Power, last place. Palucci trying to salvage whatever he can there, just driving off into the distance.
Trying to get away from it. Agori most likely going down here. And it will just be flushed away. Nenebeche just checking his angles before he steps up for the flush. That's the first elimination we've seen this match, which is a little bit slower than maybe we're used to. Kanina Power will suffer it. And they will hold a little bit closer to Milta now on the south side. Fairly central in the circle, so they've got a little bit more time to play with.
Many teams now just making their way in here. Center of the map is being heavily occupied. NB Esports and Hyper close by, but not really dead center. And I can't even really make out the 2 teams. I know Nexuria is one of them, but another team just completely covered up by the names of other corresponding teams around there. So many teams getting that central focal point, but it is that split, you know, east or west. That's a big question. And hopefully it doesn't go south, because if it does, I mean, we're keeping that bridge in play. We're keeping an urban town of Milta in play, which is going to get very tricky for everyone.
Yeah, it would be pretty nasty, to say the least. STE making their way in from the western edge right now, behind Daksan. They do have a backstop still yet to rotate through. I believe that's Sheng still waiting all the way out to the western side. So they aren't a full 4 just yet, so probably... a little bit hesitant to take a full scrap, but they're in the next circle. They're going to slow down a little bit, maybe take some overlook, take some information gathering peeks over towards the buildings that Hero is moving past now.
I don't know if it's on purpose, but it is a strategy to have the last member, if you're especially if you're an edge fighting team, right, like STE, to have the last player rotate in very late. So when the team does engage in a combat, they get like about 10 seconds of information, and they can really pass that valuable 10 seconds to the last player to pick a perfect off angle. So we'll see if it comes into play. Enigma Galaxy, man, they're great for their rotations, but looking at that minimap with how many teams, oh boy. Enigma Galaxy, I'm imagining a fast Eastern wrap potential. I mean, that would be the perfect rotation for them to make, but this is a tough one. We're going down towards Milta Power.
STE pick up a point over onto Daksan in the meantime, who have lost one of their players. This is, you're right, a hard southeast shift. These maneuvers are going to be really, really tough now over near that Milta area and maybe into that urban environment that you spoke about before as the eliminations start to pack themselves into the feed. You can see they are going to come on through. Morph actually taking a knock and a flush to Kanina Power, as Kanina Power have made that move nice and early.
Yeah, this is a classic zone too. Like, it's not very common, but the strategy involved in, you know, figuring out how to get the best power position here, or there's so many power positions. You have the wizard towers just, you know, elevated at different distances. You can still have that high ground of the forest. And then, of course, Milta Power, mini Milta Power, this compound in particular. So many strong positions with different dynamics involved. This is going to be a great match to watch.
Sure is going to have plenty of twists and turns, I'm sure. The lumberyard at the top of that hill on the south side, currently being vied for by plenty of different players. Inko wanting their slice of the south. instead, playing on the east side of Milta. NB defending against a roll-up coming through from Nasser. One knock already, and Fist goes down second. Two found from Nasser, and this is a really solid start. Can they convert here? Because the nades are starting to get cooked, and this is where it gets dangerous. The Xenox playing forwards does manage to get back inside the building, and there is a knock sent back their way over with that nade from Mondo.
Yeah, Spec on the off angle needs to be careful. This is attracting a lot of noise. You can see two teams looming overhead already. That is FaZe and Udo Alliance. Spec smartly goes down to just try and finish off the fight. It was a 4v2, but it stalled just long enough where, you know, a third party might be disastrous for both of these teams. NB now getting aggressive, and they have to. They only have two players. One of the players of Nasser gets confirmed. J7